called Finding Clarity on Who You Serve. So that's what we're talking about today, finding clarity on who you serve, okay? So not anybody else, you, okay? And if you don't know me by now, my name is Jamie Hernandez, founder of Breakthrough Yoga Coaching Method, and my mission is to help you emotionally and financially, and just to bridge the gap between your spiritual practice and your business. So just aligning those and just starting to heal what sabotages your business, starting to heal those core wounds that end up sabotaging your business, and always, sort of bring you off sort of on the side of what you're really wanting to do. So if you're here live, then let me know, first of all, in the comments, what is your expertise? What is it that you do? And just write the first thing that comes to your mind. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be well thought out. Like, what is your expertise? What is it that you want to give to the world? And if you're here for the replay, #replay, so I can come back and comment and just answer and workshop with you, your questions and your answers to what the questions that we asked during this workshop, because that's what we do. We actually workshop this topic so that it's not just more information and more like, wow, that's interesting. It's actually like allowing you to go just a level deeper into where am I at now, and can we get a little bit more realistic as to where I am at now, and what can I actually do today to move me towards closer to my own truth. All right, so thank you for being here. And again, I'm going to be checking down here if people are commenting as well, because sometimes on my phone it doesn't show, so I'm going to just check my computer as well. So I see Claudia is here. Hello, hello. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is, let me know in which category you are. You, one, know exactly who you serve. Okay, that's number one. So write me in the comments. Are you number one? Number two, you kind of, sort of, but you're still unclear and right? You're number two. Or number three, where you're like, I don't know. I'm confused. I completely don't know. I'm not sure, right? Or are you number four? And this one's super interesting and juicy. You're in a transition, and you actually feel like your old offer is now emerging into something different. It's a new service, a new identity that you're kind of trying to climatize towards, okay? So again, are you number one, where you know exactly who you serve? You're number two, right? And none of these are wrong. It's just to see, well, where am I at, right? Number two, I kind of, sort of, but then you kind of like, you're confused. Am I this person? Do I talk to these people? Do I talk to these people? I'm not sure. All of these different people kind of come up into my vortex, and I don't know who I serve. And then all of a sudden you have somebody and they come to you with a certain problem. You go, oh, maybe that's the person. And another person comes to another problem. Oh, maybe that's the person, right? Or you just don't know. You're just like, I don't know. Oh, God, I don't know. It's just overwhelming. It's confusing. Or number four, you're in this transition and you're in this place where you deep down know there's part of me that's offering my service, but now there's this new emerging part of me, that new truth that, I want to emerge. And I don't know how to really kind of make that transition to, my old identity to my new identity. And it's kind of scary, right? Okay, so let me know if that is you. And again, I'll look down here on my comments to see, because for some reason it's not showing up here. All right, so let me know. Now, I'm going to show you and workshop with you something that I do with my clients, okay, just to get you clarity on who you serve, right? And how to speak to her in a way that she's like, oh my God, she's speaking to me. Like, how is she in my head? How does she actually know what I'm thinking? How does she know what I'm feeling? How does she know what I'm doing? You want to be able to speak to your client in that way, okay? So the very first questions I want to ask you is just to think about this for a second. Where were you in your spiritual journey, in your business journey 20 years ago? So write me in the comments, where were you? Or write it down in a journal just to kind of where were you, right? And let's just go through our journey, right? And where were we? Where were you 10 years ago, right? In your spiritual path, in your, in your business journey. Where were you? Just let yourself, you don't have to know exactly, but we have a certain we're like, oh yeah, that's when I broke up with so-and-so. And that's when I finally decided I'm going to be a yoga teacher. That's when I decided I'm done with this city and I'm going to do this, or I found my teacher, or I found this method that, just think about those things. And where were you 5 years ago? Okay. Just start to allow yourself, that journey, because this process, especially when you're coming at it from a spiritual perspective, is always an internal process. Our ideal avatar is not somewhere out there. It's always often a reflection of who we are becoming, right? And that's the beauty of this practice, is that we're constantly becoming something. We're constantly expanding. We're constantly moving into our outer limit. Raise me your hand if you feel okay, yeah, I'm in that place where it's I'm in this new leveling up, and it's kind of scary and ooh, But if you allow yourself just to move through those places and even watch yourself and see, wow, I was there before, 20 years ago. Wow, I would have never thought I'd be here. And wow, 10 years ago and 5 years ago. And now what you want to do as you start to see yourself through this journey, right? You want to be able to tell that journey in a place where you can communicate a story, okay? Because what we start to realize is that when you start to speak your truth, when you start to speak your experience, naturally, and because that is so authentic and because it's so true, naturally you're going to have people who magnetize towards you, right? So, even if you teach meditation, yoga, coaching, music therapy, whatever it is, sound healing, you will start to notice, and tell me if this is true in the comments, you will start to notice that people kind of naturally gravitate toward you, So I was teaching just a general yoga class at the YMCA, but people would always gravitate towards me in terms of two things: anxiety and depression, which again, it's a very general thing, but they would somehow talk to me about it after class. And then also from another perspective, a lot of yoga teachers, coaches, healers, psychologists, they would come to me also from that business perspective. So it was very interesting to naturally just notice, and this is what I want you guys to notice, that, happening, okay? So what you want to start to do is start to be able to show your story to your clients in a way that they can see themselves in that story. And so the difference is, you're not telling them, I am a yoga teacher and I heal your chakras and I clear this, and so that's telling somebody. And it sounds like, whoa, that's cool, right? But if you're going to develop a sense of trust, if you're going to develop a sense of connection, if you're going to build upon the processes that you have brought yourself through and allow your client to see, oh, wow, okay, she has this ability to see me where I'm at. I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed, I'm in despair, and move me to this place. Oh, okay, right? And so you want to be able, so it's we can't necessarily just say, okay, I heal, people who have been abandoned from their parents. Yes, that's great. Okay, that's a beginning. And it's sort of kind of okay, cool. Somebody, but sometimes people don't always necessarily can fully see where they're at. So we have to start to begin by also speaking from these stories that have specificity, that have a place where you can see them inside their head, where you can see them and feel them inside their body, and you can also know what are they trying to do? What have they tried to do to solve this problem, right? And when you've brought yourself through a transformation, whatever that is, and you start to describe those things, and you just start to describe how you've brought yourself from, here where you maybe are completely depressed or addicted or you couldn't leave your house, to a place where, oh, I brought myself from the culmination of those, the credits that I was telling you about, right? It's a culmination of your magic mixed with your experience to give you this process. So you're showing your client that you've been through that. Okay, so I want to give you a couple of examples in my own life, and hopefully this will help you when you start to speak about your own, what it is that you do. Okay, so and hopefully this is going to be helpful. So let me know if any of this is making sense. Number one, and so I see here Claudia says, number one, she knows exactly who she serves, and that's beautiful, right? And I will talk a little bit more about that and why Claudia is in that place of knowing exactly who she serves. Okay, so before that, let me just go through the stories of 20 years ago. Let me just give you an example of 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and 5 years ago, okay? So 20 years ago, if I were to, I was thinking about this morning, so it was kind of cool. I'm glad that I kind of had to offer this workshop. This is the beauty of coaching, is that you offer these trainings and all of a sudden you have your own like ahas. And so 20 years ago, I was in this place where I lived in a city, this big city. I got really depressed. And then I was with somebody at that time, and I ended up breaking up with him. I ended up saying, oh my gosh, okay, I need to move out of here because I'm totally depressed. This is not, like, I'm getting drained. I was at a party one night at 2 a.m. and somebody's like, oh, how are you? And I said, I'm tired. And that was the red flag. I was like, oh my God, I need to get out of here. Like, I am at a party, on Saturday night, and somebody's asking me, how am I? And I'm like, tired. I'm like, ooh, red flag. I need to do something. So what I did is I moved here, and I moved into my city now, and I decided that I was going to become a yoga teacher. And so I was really, really focused on teaching all of these different classes and just going all in. And so, I was hustling, I was teaching, I was living on my own, and I was in the mall. And when I was in the mall, I was passing all these people who were eating. And because I was like determined and I was hustling and I was like, I let go of all my other securities of my, stable job and, whatever it was. And I looked at everyone's food and I'm like, wow, if nobody was looking, I would literally eat that leftover rice and potatoes or whatever it was, right? And at that moment, now that I think about it, I felt in despair. I felt overwhelmed. But when I look back at it, even in that moment when I was like, dude, I am like, working this, I'm hustling, I'm like teaching 20 classes, and no matter what, I'm doing this. And even when I'm like, literally hungry, like the typical starving artist, I still kept going. So when I look back at my 20 years ago, it's like, wow, there was something inside of me that was compelling me, right, to move forward, right? And this is where you want to start to see your clients on their journey of what they were thinking, right? Because I was thinking, no matter what, I'm doing this, right? And the things and what I was doing, it's like, okay, I'm transitioning, new life, I'm moving out of the city, I'm breaking up, I'm changing careers, I'm going into this thing where it's like all in, teaching yoga, even if it means like some days I was hungry. Okay, let me know if you can relate. Because if you've been on this journey, especially as a spiritual entrepreneur, we've all had those moments. Okay, let's get real, especially when we begin. And there's something deep down inside of us that continues to compel us. Okay, so then I started to build up my experience, just like you guys are, that's just like you guys, right? If you've been in this thing for decades. And then I started to see people around me like, okay, how are these people making money, right? How are these people, okay, they're giving workshops. So I started giving workshops. Okay, oh, wow, okay. What I really start to see is when you give teacher trainings, whoa, that's where the money is, wow, okay. So I started giving 200-hour teacher trainings. Then I started giving very specialized, well, no, I didn't start with 200 hours. I gave specialized teacher trainings, mom and baby yoga teacher trainings. So it was very niche. It's very like, okay, right? And nobody in my space was doing that. I was pioneering that. So it was a great niche to be in. And then, of course, people were asking me, well, do you teach prenatal So I did that, and then I started doing the 200 hour, okay? So all that to say, right, was I was doing something based on what I was seeing my other peers doing. I was doing it like everybody else, okay? And yes, it was making me money, but guess what, okay? After a couple of years, after maybe 5, 6, 7 years, there was still something inside of me, and this is for you who are in that transition, okay, where you're like, I was doing that thing and I was known for this thing, and man, it is good, and I really, I love the fact that I kind of like narrowed down my niche. It's very obvious when you say my title, then it's like, when I said mom and baby teacher training, it's pretty dang obvious like what I do, right? And I knew it was for yoga teachers. I knew it was people who, but there was still something inside of me that's like, oh, doesn't feel like the thing, right? And the thing I started to observe, and this is what I want you guys to start to observe, okay? Because this is a journey, guys, okay? And I'm kind of depicting the typical journey through a story, right? And so I came to a point where it's like, I noticed I love the entrepreneurial aspect. I love the marketing aspect, and not from a, so this is it. So I started talking about that. I started talking about, wow, the potential of scaling my business. Wow, the interesting thing about marketing. And I started to talk to people in my group, and I got pushback, right? From like, oh, well, you're a yoga teacher. This is not about making money. But deep down inside of me, I'm like, but I have big financial goals. I mean, what makes you more worthy than me? Like, why do I need to have a smaller paycheck and you need to have a bigger paycheck because you have a certain, credential, right? And I start to realize that I too bring people through certain transformations, right? And so I had a lot of what happens when you start talking about your dream. You're going to have two camps. You're going to have people who are thinking that's completely dumb and stupid. People who are just kind of sort of pushing back on you. And then you're going to have people like, oh my God, finally, somebody who's talking about business and how to make money in the spiritual realm, because most of the community or a lot of the community are like, we have to do this, out of our goodwill. We need to do this, in service of others, when really, when we follow that model, we end up burning out. And so I was thinking to myself, well, isn't there a way of doing both? Or it's like, I'm financially nourished, not just financially, but like energetically, and being fulfilled, because if I'm not making money and you're not making money and we're trying to help each other, it's a very difficult and challenging place to stay in abundance, because none of us are fully nourished or resourced with what we need to fully show up, right? If you're like constantly hustling and teaching all the 20 classes, if you're, having all of these clients and they're kind of paying you $1 per hour, and you're starting to build resentment, or you're starting to feel like, oh my God, I don't want to show up to work today because I'm tired, right? Or you're just like, you're constantly looking at the numbers instead of the actual people and the souls that you're serving. Those are all symptoms and red flags that there's something that is not being nourished, that is not being fulfilled on a physical level, on a mental level, and on an energetic level. So I start to realize, like, okay, wait a minute, why can't I have both? Why can't I have financial abundance where I can show up to all my clients, not just some of them, and not just when I'm on on a high, or not just in the morning when I've had my coffee, but like at all given moments, can I show up fully, as I am, in my truth. And this is why, this is funny, this is why I'm wearing this dress, because I wore this dress for this goddess workshop. And I thought to myself, there's something about when you market yourself, when you speak to your ideal avatar, that is exposing. Why? Because you're exposing yourself, right? So this inner goddess, this woman of abundance, this identity that I identified with inside, it was emerging. And so I had to be able to deal with the camp that was like, oh, well, that's just greedy, that's just selfish, you're just wanting to do this for money. And then also start to align with souls who are on purpose, fully confident, fully certain, and at the same time still in that abundance, still in that place where they're able to share what they're doing, just like I'm doing now. It's like I'm able to show up here like fully excited, fully like, ready to dive into this, even though it's completely free, because I'm in that place where it's like, I'm finally speaking my truth. I'm finally aligning with what it is that is true for me. Is everyone gonna like it? No, right? And that there's a purpose to that, because we live in a dual kind of reality where that kind of pushback helps us develop that belief, right? Because if it's too easy, it's like, and then we kind of buy our own marketing, then there's not enough of that place that creates that longevity of like, I need to build that inner belief. Let me know if this is making sense for you guys. And so let me know, are there moments, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, all right? And so what I'm doing right now, and what I did with my 20 years ago, and maybe I didn't execute it perfectly perfect, but I have at least the basic concept of understanding I need to show you guys, right, through communication, through my actual experience, not some methodology or some esoteric philosophical thing that sounds really like deep, or some technical, like in our process we do this. Yes, I definitely have processes, but where do those processes come from, right? It comes from, and I'll repeat it again, it's this culmination, this synergy of all of your coaching, your music therapy, your NLP, your meditation, your energy work, your workshop, alchemy workshops, like all of it. And it's combined into your unique experience, because you have gone through your own trauma, as we all have, and you have found these moments in time where it's like, okay, enough is enough. So here's the kind of the thing that happens. Here's the framework, and this is what I want to teach you guys. There's that showing through the story, right? Where I'm in the head, and in the head of what am I thinking. So remember when I was saying, like, I was talking about, oh my God, if nobody were watching, I would eat that food because I was that hungry, right? What was I doing? I was like hustling, guys. I was like, oh my gosh, and I'm doing this no matter what. What was I doing? And how was I feeling? And I was feeling like literally just compelled. And at the same time, I have to say, I was also resentful. So, meaning to say, it's like, okay, I just give you another little story. Hopefully this is not too off tangent, but so I was like probably on my fifth, like teaching, jumping from here to there and teaching all of these classes. Okay. And I'm not proud of this moment, but I'm going to out myself. And this is one thing, when you start to process, and you process your own shame, your own rejection, your own guilt, you're able to reveal aspects of yourself, all aspects of yourself, with no energy anymore, with no shame. Okay, so so what happened was, I was at probably my fifth, and I was tired, and I had my kids waiting for me at home, and this homeless person's like, hey, do you have any money? And I knew, and I could smell the alcohol off his breath, so that already triggered me, because I have past history with that. And he was asking for money, and he looked at me and he's like, you're lying, and I was like, dude, I need this like change to get on the freaking bus to teach my next class. And I was angry, because I was like, I have been teaching all day long and you're asking me for money. And it wasn't a proud moment, okay, I have to admit. But you see, I just gave you an example of what I was doing at the moment, right? And maybe there's something in your life where you had maybe exploded because you're hustling, you're doing the thing, you're trying so hard, and you kind of reach this kind of mirror in your face, like, ooh, that wasn't so pretty, right? And when you can start to express that with your potential clients, then they start to see, oh my gosh, she gets me. It's like, I had those thoughts too. I thought I was the only one. I had those feelings too of like, I'm doing this, do or die. And I also did something like that where I wasn't so like, impressed with myself. I was a bit pretty shamed. Or I had that moment where I was speaking my truth to one of my friends, and she sort of brought up my own, not hers, but my own shame around me wanting to make money. So it's like my transition was, I loved, teaching about spirituality and going to the deep of the deep. And, that's still my thing, right? And so if you were to work with me, that's what we do. We first heal our core wounds, everything that sabotages you from, speaking your truth, so that you're not in this place where you feel like you're hiding, or you're feeling like you're putting yourself out there, but very safely. It's like, okay, I'm a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, I'm here. Nothing wrong with that, but it's a very safe box, right? But when you actually start to talk about, things from that place where you're processed, from that place where there's not this energy around it, then you start to build this trust in other people. It's like, oh my God, she gets what I'm thinking, she gets what I'm feeling, and she sees what I'm doing. Because the truth is, she is you, right? Isn't that what we're learning in yoga, right? You are actually me, and I am actually you. And we're constantly mirroring each other. And everybody that comes up into our life is showing us a mirror, right? So that homeless person was showing me a mirror, right, of who I was. He had some humor, and at the same time, he also showed me my resentment, right, at the time, which, again, I'm not proud of that moment. And then it's like my friend who, was like telling me like, oh, this is not about like financial growth. This is not about money. Showed me my own shame around making money and my own shame around business, which we can listen to that, or we can see, oh, we're always going to have two camps where people are like, that's just dumb, dude. And then some people are like, I get what you're doing, because guess what? I have that dream too. It's like my inner secret, right? That I am a spiritual entrepreneur and I actually want to make money. Like, oh my gosh, right? Because, again, coming from communities where it's like you must serve and give and without wanting the worldly goods. And it just, that didn't make sense to me when you have a mortgage and when you have two kids and when you are trying to run a business in a way where you're not burning out and building resentment and hustling and yelling at homeless people because you're working so hard, like, right? Or feeling ashamed when somebody's like, oh, that you shouldn't be making money, right? Or my other one was looking outside to see what everybody else is doing. Oh, everybody else is doing teacher trainings. Oh, I must do that, right? And I'm very, very grateful and happy that I brought myself through that experience. But that's the thing that you're going to realize through your journey. And when you look back at your 20 years, when you look back at your 10 years, we look back at your 5 years, they all illuminated, right? When you said enough is enough. When you took action, okay, doesn't mean the action is always going to be perfectly implemented. In an entrepreneurial journey, you know that it never really is. You're always kind of trying, falling on your face, learning from falling on your face, getting up and like going into it, because what happens when you do that, you can now share with your clients. Yeah, I made that mistake, right? I made the mistake of hustling. I made the mistake of, okay, everybody else is doing teacher trainings. I'm going to do the teacher trainings too, right? That looks so like, wow. And everybody's like, look at this kind of very, popular teacher that looks like they have their stuff together, and really like they're barely like getting by behind the scenes, right? The studio looks amazing. There's even like lots of students in their studio. But when you actually see behind the scenes, and the only reason I'm saying this is because I've spoken to actual business owners, they're like breaking even. Okay, I'm not saying all studios are going through this, but it's that, right? Where you're like, wow, even through all that, or they've burnt themselves out because there's so much work to do when you're running a studio or when you're doing teacher trainings that you don't have enough resources to give to yourself to serve other people. right? And then there's that number 3 that I talked about, where it's like that story where I'm like, oh, there is the teacher trainings, and then there's the spiritual aspect that I love, the transformational aspect. But then there's a business thing, and I was like very like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about that because people are gonna judge me, they're gonna reject me, I'm gonna be rejected from the tribe, right? And they're gonna judge me because I'm greedy. We actually have to go through that contrast to really develop our own inner belief of what's true for us. You see, does this make sense to you guys? Okay, let me know if it's making sense. And if you are commenting, I'm not seeing it. I don't know why this keeps on happening, but because I love to hear what people are saying as we're talking. So write me in the comments if there's something happening here. Okay, good. So Katie's here. Hello, Katie. Right? So let me know what is resonating with you so far. And have you kind of looked at yourself 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? And the questions I want to ask here's a framework, is what you want to start to see in that journey is when you decided, number 1, so you can write this down, like when was enough? 2, when did you take action? 3, when you took action, what was the most, because we take a lot of actions and some of them don't work, but then there's the one process, the one methodology, the one culmination, right? Because it's a culmination of your own experience and somebody else's, right? You meet that teacher. It's not about just the teacher. It's about a culmination of your experience and your truth and their truth. And it's like this synergy. And you start to apply that process and you're like, oh, this is what works. And that's how you develop your methodology. And the way we speak about your methodology is you show them, like I was telling you, through a story of where you were before, right? Hungry and starving and looking at people's plates, or looking outside of myself and saying, oh my God, everyone's doing teacher trainings, maybe I should do that. Or ashamed because there is really this deep truth inside that I want to make a lot of money, and I love business and I love marketing, and it's very exciting to me, that financial growth and possibility, right? So you want to start to see, what in those places where you were before, and the processes that brought you out of that overwhelm, out of that despair, out of that shame, out of that rejection. Right? And as you speak your story, then you can start to talk about your processes, because then it will make more sense for your ideal avatar, because she's gonna be like, oh my God, she gets me, that's me, oh my God, how did she know that? And then you show them where you were, and then you also show them how through your processes you got to where you are, where it's like, okay, yeah, now I actually named my friggin' group like the discipline of business and yoga, because those are the 2 nerdy passions I have. And I'm finally like, okay, I am okay with talking about it. And not everyone is there's going to be 2 camps. Some are like, that's just dumb. And then some are like, please, finally, somebody, oh my God, like, please show me the way, because I am tired of the hustle. I'm tired of looking at some guru. I'm tired of trying to get another credential to make myself feel worthy and add to that 20-page list that I have, right? So you start to see, and you go inside with your own experience, your own processes, right? And then you start to talk about that, and then it starts to build this place where it's like, she sees me. And because you've actually brought yourself from here to here, right? Then the person also your potential clients start to actually trust in the process too, versus just talking, like I said at the beginning. If I just talk, oh, okay, I'm a sound healer, I'm this, which I'm not shaming you for that. It doesn't really tell them, right, that, oh, your processes, what you have gone through, you understand me, is going to bring me out of my anxiety, out of my shame, out of this place where I'm completely paralyzed, right? So let me read what Claudia says here. what's the reasoning with me so far is, instead of telling students what they should do, to share our own story, create relatable approach so they can feel part of it, right? And so then marketing becomes this very simple thing of just speaking your truth, and all of it, not from like, if you're just speaking from where you now have arrived, where you're, where sometimes I see it like this, where people are like, well, you just simply have to let go, and you just have to detach, and you just have to, like, it kind of is like, okay, that's great, you're there, but like, where were you before, and how did you get to that place of letting go, right? So it's like the difference between showing somebody through your story, communicating in a way which such specificity that it develops this place where they trust you because you're just being you. And don't you want people to trust you, right? Like, you're not marketing so that, oh my God, you can create these clients that, feel a certain way. You're just telling your truth, and whoever resonates with you, will resonate with you. And whoever is like, well, that's dumb, they're gonna self-select out, and you want that. So if you have this kind of just general title, right, energy healer, you're kind of gonna get all kinds of people who are sort of kind of interested and dabbling and never really ready for the true transformation that you have brought yourself through, that deep transformation that you have brought yourself through. Because the other way is very kind of safe and superficial. And on another point that I want to tell you is that that's more apt for the dollar per hour model, where you're like, okay, well, I'm a Pilates teacher, well, I'm a music teacher, I'm a yoga teacher. So everybody's like, well, okay, well, yoga teachers, they make this, so I'm going to just pay you that. Versus I help people who, have been abandoned by their parent, and help them heal their wounds so that they can start to live in a place where they have relationships where they trust other people. Most importantly, they trust themselves. Most importantly, they start to live life where they're not in this place of scarcity and scared and paralyzed, right? Do you see the difference, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go to this yoga class, right? Or somebody who's really invested in their own, transformation, and understand, whoa, okay, I have to kind of go a little bit layer deeper of understanding, and seeing where I'm at, and seeing it through your eyes, and also seeing, oh, wow, and seeing that place where, wow, you brought yourself through this place. So they start to see, oh, there's a solution. There's possibility. Oh my gosh, like I've gone through, therapy. So it's like one of my students, he had debilitating anxiety. He could barely get out of bed. And, I started speaking, and I often spoke about my own truth. And again, it wasn't because I'm like, I'm here to get him as a client. I just was speaking my truth. And he calls me one day in a very vulnerable, courageous moment. And he's like, I think you could help me. Why? It's not because I'm like, I help people with debilitating anxiety. He heard, my own story of when I had debilitating anxiety, when I went through like crisis mode, and I had like literally, my whole skin was like full of rashes and pussing, like, and I was totally in these like continuous panic, attacks, right? When I started telling him that from a place of what I was thinking, what I was feeling, what I was doing, he calls me up and he's like, dude, I think I need your help, right? And it was a very courageous moment. And in that moment, I gave him the processes to kind of bring his nervous system down right there and then, right? And then from that place, and so this is the thing that I teach my clients, is that we offer this, what we call discovery calls. So you start to talk about your thing, right? From that place of story, right? From that place where you can know what they're thinking, know what they're feeling, know what they're doing. Talk to them about the processes that you've actually gone through, the ones that have worked for you, that have brought you to this transformation. And then often after that, people will reach out to you. And so I teach people how to create like these discovery calls, or what you call breakthrough calls, or epiphany calls, whatever you want to call them, doesn't really matter. But basically in that, you're not solving their problem, but you're bringing them closer to their truth and why they're stuck, right? So I gave him just enough on that call to make him realize, okay, she's got the goods. She's actually understands where I'm at. And she actually was able in that moment to kind of move me to a place where I was literally paralyzed, having a panic attack, to a place where I'm not anymore, and showing me that this is the process. And so then I teach people how to move people on through a breakthrough where they're stuck on a call, and then start to tell them, well, this is the process, because this is what I'm teaching you guys right now. Through the 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, you want to start to see, ooh, what are those processes? Because sometimes we kind of like, we keep on adding credentials, not realizing we have actually created processes, okay? And processes that you can name, processes that you can have your own trademark on. All right, it doesn't have to be the name of your guru or the whatever special training that you took. It's now yours because you've synergized and created into your own. Does that make sense? Right? And so then what I teach you guys, or what I teach my clients, is like, okay, so we get on this call so that we can bring them to their breakthrough, bring them to their truth, closer to their truth, finally calling them on their BS, finally getting to the root of what's happening, not just this superficial, place, or this esoteric intellectual place, but actual getting to the, the darker, deeper, what we have in our head and we don't want to tell anybody else, right? Hold them in that place and bring them to their truth. And then that helps them see, okay, yeah, you're my person. And the other thing I start to teach our clients is I also move them out of the dollar per hour model, because that's really great if you're just going to title yourself this just very kind of generic terms, right? And it's not that I'm saying never do that. I'm just saying if you want to position yourself and you want to communicate in a way that you are the expert and you are the thought leader in your very specific transformation, people will understand, okay, she's the one for me. I get it. It's not like, oh, she's just another dime a dozen so-and-so title, right? Interesting, right? And so I teach people to move themselves out of the dollar per hour model and into the premium space. And what does that mean? You take your expertise, and this is what I help you through the program, to distill your expertise, distill a combination of all your magic, and start to look at, okay, what's step number one? Step number one for us is we do a 3-level clearing. So we look at where the trauma has been imprinted in the body, right? Because the body always stores all of those traumas and emotions, and it shows up as chronic emotions. So if you have some kind of chronic emotion, that's a red flag telling you that there's some stored trauma in the body, and we all have, right? So you want to look at those chronic emotions. Number 2, how to distill your program so you know, okay, step number 1 is this. We do the 3-level clearing. Step number 2 is get grounded in the body, because we live through a body, right? We live here on earth. We can't just intellectualize it. We can't just go into our mind. We can't just do energy work. We actually have to see it in the body. So we must get grounded in the body, right? Step number 2 is how to process emotion, because all of those chronic emotions are going to keep on coming up unless we actually learn how to process it. If we have deep-rooted anger, deep-rooted grief, deep-rooted shame, we need to learn how to process it as it arises, right? Step number 3, how to clear the mind. Right? In our program, that's week number 3, how to clear the mind so that your soul starts coming in. Because when your mind is not clear, you have the psyche and energy and imprint, physical imprint of so many different people, your mom, your dad, your people who have maybe abused you, or the traumas that you've gone through. It's all there, and we unconsciously see through that lens, see through that psyche. So we must start to learn how to clear it so that we can just hear the quiet. And the quiet is where the soul starts to come in, right? And then what we also do is week number 4 is we start to clear the energy, right? Because we have all of this imprinted energy inside of us that we need to clear so that we have a distinction between my energy signature and your energy signature, right? So I can hold space for you even in your deepest, darkest moments because I'm clear, right? I've processed in my body, in my mind, in my energy. Am I like crystal clear? Never. This journey is not about being perfect or finding that place where you're finally enlightened and above everybody else. That just doesn't happen, right? You're taking everybody on your journey, right? And they're just a little bit behind you, and you want to start to see where are they on their healing journey where you're like, enough is enough. I tried everything and it didn't work. There's these processes, and so you bring the solution, right? Where they're finally ready for something that actually works. So I think I forgot to finish a story with my client who had debilitating anxiety. Week 4, he literally got out of bed he literally felt and said, I feel like a new person. It was a moments where his kids used to have to help him out of bed. His wife would, kind of be more supportive and take on more, right? And that was very draining on his relationships. He would have to call in work. It was very draining in his business. He had to, his beautiful kids would help him, and so, that created a lot of guilt and a lot of like, oh my God, despair. Like, when am I going to finally get out of this, right? Week 4, he literally had the tools to get out of bed and live a life that he was finally dreaming, right? And so that's what you want to start to do, is start to see in yourself, because you already have the assets. So when I'm telling you these stories, I don't want you to think like, oh my God, I can't do that. I don't have that. You must have the transformation, because you brought yourself through the transformation already. Just look back in your life, look at 20 years, look at 10 years, look at 5, and see on that healing journey, where were you ready, right? When enough was enough, when you took action and, oh my God, everything wasn't working. And then finally, where you're gonna get your client is where, you actually have the solution. And it's not because you're convincing them. Okay, let me get that clear. It's not because you're trying to sell them. You're simply saying, this is what I have. I was here. I understand. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're feeling. I know what you're doing, right? This is the process, right, that I take you through. And this is the outcome, right? And here it is available to you. Right? And so I teach our clients is to heal their core wounds, distill, right, their expertise, so that we understand what is happening in week 1, 2, 3. Not everything in what you know. What is the very first thing? If we needed to start with, it would be this, and you start looking at your own journey. Okay, so this is where the worthiness piece is, the not enough piece comes in for a lot of you healers and transformational coaches or yoga teachers, whatever you want to call yourself, is that you think, I'm not healed, it's never enough, when really you have done it, right? And you want to look at those processes, you want to look at those tools that have worked for you and synergize it into making it your own. That's what we always do, right? And so then I start to teach you guys, right? Now that you have this very distinct before and after, right? Now you can sell it at a premium, which means that 3K, 5K, 10K, 25K, whatever you feel. And that's another huge thing that I bring my clients to, is from that scarcity mindset where you've been taught, especially in the spiritual world. I think we've been taught, we're not allowed to want. We're not allowed to have desires. We're not allowed to, want material goods, when it kind of doesn't make sense. If that makes sense if you're going to be like a monk and you're going to let everything go, and you literally are going to dress in the robes and you're going to devote your life to that practice. Yeah, if that's what you want to do, great. But if you're trying to live this kind of what we call the householder life, where you have a mortgage, where you have a business, where you have a lot of clients, it has to be sustainable, right? And so I talk a lot about this in another workshop, why charging more makes it affordable for everyone. So it's a complete mindset shift from scarcity to abundance, right? So then now it's you can expand. You're not contracting. You're not just getting by. you can expand into your truth. And you can help others do that from that place where you fully are able to show up as you,